Missouri Attorney General Andrew Bailey has been tapped to serve as co-deputy director of the FBI. He will serve as second in command of the Bureau alongside Dan Bongino. The former Fox News host has publicly sparred with the administration over its handling of the Epstein files. CBS News justice reporter Jake Rosen joins me now. And Jake, what's the White House saying about this latest staff shakeup and what's behind it?
Well, not much about Dan Bongino's future in this role. Obviously, when you think about going back just a couple of months now, Bongino infamously clashed with Attorney General Pam Bondi, and he took a day off of work right around the center of the heat and apex of that Epstein rollout by the Trump administration. But Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt really touted his bona fides as obviously not just a pro-Trump ally. He's been very vocal, has moved in federal courts, the Supreme Court, on behalf of President Trump, going back to his conviction in New York, hoping to kind of file something. Obviously didn't work out, but to free President Trump to be allowed to speak in court and after court during his conviction there in New York State. In addition to that, touting his just general law enforcement bona fides as somebody who can come into the nation's biggest and most important law enforcement agency and help them guide the ship. However, that does add another body there and somebody who has not actually run or been part of any of these institutions before.
Yeah, what more do we know about Andrew Bailey and his record?
Well, he's been very pro-life and anti-abortion rights, I guess, is the phrasing, in his time. And very vocal, like I said, Trump ally, and somebody who was rumored to be a potential attorney general pick when you think about what the transition looked like, potentially an FBI director pick. He was overpassed for those. But obviously, given the uncertainty in the FBI right now, and I think, Nicole, as we've seen kind of the expansion of what they're doing on the day-to-day basis, when you don't have somebody who has been part of the FBI in their career before, like Dan Bongino, who was a Secret Service officer turned media personality, Bailey is not either part of the FBI, but at the same time, he does have a more prosecutorial background, somebody who can maybe guide what's going on. But again, a very pro-Trump person being added to a very pro-Trump leadership at the FBI. And traditionally, we should emphasize the deputy director role does the day-to-day operations, and they're traditionally a career FBI officer or agent. That is not the case here.
Yeah, so why do you think they brought him in? And do you think Bongino's going to stay on the job?
Well, we have seen nothing but glowing praise from the Department of Justice and FBI leadership saying, ready to get to work, from Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, who kind of launched this and posted it last night. Dan Bongino said, welcome to the team. So nothing yet about that. But Bongino's been very quiet in the last couple of weeks as the Epstein fallout has rolled out. Obviously, that podcasting shift, if he were to go back, how do you leave the administration you gave up everything to join, especially given the rift that we've seen over how this Epstein fallout has been handled? But at the same time, it does give them cover if somebody were to leave, that you have somebody who, A, does not need congressional appointment and approval of, and B, somebody, again, more of a traditionalist, not necessarily kind of the media firebomber that Dan Bongino has been in his career, yet to be determined, and I'm sure this will play out.
Why do you think he has gone quiet?
I think when you have a situation like how the Epstein rollout was handled, with that memo that contradicted not just what Bongino said, but what Attorney General Pam Bondi, President Trump, Kash Patel, numerous people in the Trump administration has said, which was that there were questions to be answered, and the Department of Justice closed the door on that. Just that in itself, let alone kind of the lack of rolling out further documents, further information, that caused this massive rift, and we saw him take a day off of work and not show up. It's hard to recover from that. Whether he can going forward remains to be seen. But when you add in, again, a more traditional, MAGA law enforcement and federal prosecutor type into the mix here, it certainly would give them cover. And also, I should point out, when you're stretching them to do the day-to-day job of the FBI, they're doing immigration work, and now they're policing the nation's capital, potentially rolling that out across the country. It might actually just be an extra body at the top here to help them do the day-to-day work as an understaffed agency that needs more funding, that needs more agents to kind of help them figure out what the next 3.5 years looks like.
Yeah, they certainly have their hands full, as do you. All right, Jake Rosen, thanks so much.